The sky above Earth was filled with an eerie silence, almost as if the entire planet was holding its breath, unaware of the terror about to descend. The tranquility shattered as alien warships, massive and foreboding, appeared out of nowhere. Their sleek, dark forms blended seamlessly with the backdrop of the atmosphere, thanks to advanced cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible to the naked eye. For those who weren't looking directly at the sky, it would have been impossible to know that death was just moments away. The warships, once invisible, suddenly decloaked, revealing their terrifying size. They were not the ships of any human military. These were enormous, metallic behemoths, technology far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Without warning, they began their descent towards major cities across the world. Laser beams and powerful energy blasts rained down from their guns, instantly obliterating entire city blocks. The light from the explosions illuminated the night sky, making it look like a scene from a nightmare. People screamed in terror as they watched their world crumble. Panic swept through the streets, and the military was too slow to respond. The alien invaders seemed to anticipate every move humanity made. Cities that had stood for centuries were reduced to ruins in mere minutes. It was a coordinated, efficient attack, an invasion unlike anything Earth had ever prepared for. Amidst the chaos, Bonner, a tall, rugged human soldier, stood frozen for a moment, watching as his hometown was shattered in front of him. He had always known the possibility of war. Alien life had been theorized for years, but nothing could have prepared him for the scale of this attack. He had trained for battle, but not for this, not for the end of everything. Bonner's eyes locked onto the massive alien ships above. He could hear the faint sound of his city's sirens wailing in the distance, and the frantic cries of civilians running for cover. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from the shock of the situation, but from the realization that this wasn't some military exercise. It was an invasion. His family was in the city center, and it was already too late to reach them. As he ran through the streets, debris and rubble scattered around him. Bonner's mind raced. The alien ships were targeting all major urban centers. There was no safe place left. The military was being decimated by the alien technology, and there were no reinforcements on the way. His only hope was to find his family and get them out of the city before it was too late. But fate had other plans. As Bonner approached the heart of the city, he saw them. Alien soldiers, tall, humanoid figures with glowing blue eyes, their bodies covered in sleek armor. They moved with unnatural precision, sweeping through the streets, capturing anyone in their path. Bonner's heart sank as he saw his family being dragged away by these terrifying creatures. They weren't just killing, they were taking prisoners. The alien soldiers were using advanced mind control devices on humans, turning them into mindless drones, workers who would serve the aliens' new regime. The humans who were captured were no longer human. They were simply tools for the alien force. Bonner tried to charge at the soldiers, but the sheer power of their technology was overwhelming. He didn't even stand a chance. A beam of energy hit the ground beside him, sending him tumbling to the ground. His vision blurred as he struggled to get up, but the aliens seemed to have no interest in finishing him off. Instead, they turned their attention to the larger operation. Bonner barely escaped with his life, running into the ruins of a nearby building to hide. The last thing he saw before the doors slammed shut was one of the alien soldiers staring directly at him, as if it knew he was there. Heart racing, Bonner took refuge in the shadows. He had to survive. He had to find a way to fight back. The world he knew had just come to an end. And now, everything was on the line. Hours passed, and Bonner found himself in an unfamiliar part of the city. His thoughts raced, but his actions were more focused. He needed to find a way to escape, to warn others, and most importantly, to find his family. That's when he stumbled upon the group. In the dark, behind the ruins of what had once been a thriving neighborhood, he saw movement. A shadow darted across the alley. At first, he thought it was another alien soldier, but as he moved closer, He realized it was a group of survivors. A small group, led by a woman with short black hair and determined eyes. They were humans, just like him, but they were not running away. They were fighting. They were the resistance. Bonner approached cautiously, unsure whether to trust them. For all he knew, they could be working with the aliens, leading him into a trap. He had no way of knowing who he could trust anymore. But when the woman turned and saw him, she didn't hesitate. She motioned for him to come closer. There was no time to waste. "We don't have much time," she said, her voice urgent. "The aliens have already infiltrated the city. They're everywhere. If we don't move fast, we'll all be enslaved." Bonner felt a mixture of relief and skepticism. Could this group really be trusted? The invasion had only just begun, and there were already spies among the human resistance. But he didn't have time to ask questions. He needed allies, and if these people were the only ones left to fight, he had no choice but to trust them. As they made their way through the dark, deserted streets, the tension in the air was palpable. They had to stay out of sight, for even the slightest noise could attract the attention of the alien forces. The quiet was unnerving. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Bonner's mind kept racing. What had happened to his family? Were they still alive? Where had the aliens taken them? The woman, who introduced herself as Kira, led the group towards a hidden underground base. She explained that they had been planning their resistance for months, preparing for the possibility of an alien attack. But even they hadn't anticipated the scale of this invasion. The aliens weren't just invaders, they were invincible. As they descended into the underground hideout, Bonner's thoughts lingered on his family. He couldn't let them go without a fight. He couldn't let the aliens win. But his mind kept returning to the moment when the alien soldier had stared at him. It felt as if the creature knew him, as if it had been watching him for far longer than he could have realized. That's when the loudspeaker echoed through the hideout. The voice that came through was cold, emotionless, and utterly terrifying. It spoke in a language Bonner didn't understand, but the translation was unmistakable. "All of you are now subjects of the Greater Hive. Resistance is futile." The message sent a chill down Bonner's spine. The aliens weren't just conquering Earth. They were assimilating it. They were transforming humans into their servants, and anyone who dared resist was doomed. There was no escape, no chance of victory. The galaxy had already decided Earth's fate. But Bonner wasn't going to accept that. He wasn't going to let his world fall without a fight. As the group gathered their weapons and prepared for the next phase of their resistance, Bonner felt a burning sense of determination rise within him. He was no longer just fighting for survival. He was fighting for the future of humanity. And he wasn't going to let the aliens win. The underground base was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of dust and sweat. As Bonner crouched by a corner, he could feel the weight of the mission pressing on him. The group of survivors, now calling themselves the Resistance, had been preparing for this moment. The war against the alien invaders was no longer just about survival. It was about resistance. But the odds were stacked against them. They were fighting with nothing but scraps and determination, against an enemy whose technology was light years ahead of anything humanity had ever known. Bonner's thoughts kept returning to his family. He had no idea where they were, or if they were even alive. But he couldn't afford to dwell on that. Not now. The Resistance was counting on him. And there was no turning back. The Resistance's main base was hidden beneath the ruins of a once bustling city. The walls were lined with hastily assembled weapons, and there were maps spread out on tables, showing the locations of alien strongholds. Bonner had seen the alien warships in action, and he knew that their power was overwhelming. They had mind-controlled humans, turning them into slaves, while alien eye-controlled drones and robots patrolled the streets. They had no chance against this level of technology, or so it seemed. "We need to strike back," Kira said, her voice calm but filled with an unmistakable urgency. Kira, who had defected from the alien forces, had been the one to warn the Resistance about the aliens' true plans. She knew their weaknesses, their technologies, and most importantly, their mindset. It was a strange thing. This alien soldier, who had once fought against humanity, was now fighting for their freedom. Kira had seen the destruction caused by her own species and could no longer stand by and watch innocent people suffer. Bonner stood beside her, absorbing the gravity of her words. They had learned more about the aliens in the past few days than most humans had in their entire lives. The alien invaders weren't just conquerors. They were planners, with a cold, calculating strategy that spanned across the stars. They had advanced, eye-controlled robots, cyborg-like soldiers who were faster, stronger, and more ruthless than anything humanity had ever encountered. There were drones capable of surveying vast areas in seconds, cloaking themselves to remain undetected. These machines operated with perfect precision, designed to hunt down and eliminate any resistance. It was no longer just a war. It was a fight for humanity's survival. The resistance had no chance of winning in a direct confrontation. They had no advanced weapons, no armor, and no high-tech gadgets. They were outgunned, outclassed, and outnumbered. But they had something the aliens didn't: the will to fight, the will to survive. Bonner was assigned a dangerous mission, one that would take him straight into the heart of the alien base. There, enslaved humans were being processed, their minds taken over and turned into mere puppets for the alien overlords. The mission was risky. He didn't have the firepower to take on an entire army of aliens. But Bonner was a soldier, and soldiers didn't back down. "Bonner, you're going to infiltrate their base," Kira explained, her eyes scanning the map. "They're processing humans there, turning them into drones. You need to find out where they're keeping them. And if you can, try to rescue anyone still alive. But most importantly, gather intel. We need to know what they're planning next." Bonner nodded. It was a dangerous mission, but one that had to be done. He'd never back down from a fight, and this would be no different. As he and a small team of resistance fighters set out under the cover of darkness, the tension was palpable. The streets were empty, save for the occasional drone that flew overhead, its glowing red eyes scanning for any signs of life. The cloaking technology the aliens used was so advanced that Bonner couldn't help but wonder how the resistance would ever stand a chance. But Kira had told them that there was a way to fight back. She had a plan to hack into the alien technology, to turn their own weapons against them. It was their only hope. The alien base was a fortress, heavily guarded and surrounded by high-tech defenses. Bonner and his team moved quickly, using the cover of night to remain unseen. They had learned how to evade the drones, how to stay hidden from the eye-controlled sentinels. But the closer they got to the base, the more difficult it became. The air was thick with tension, and Bonner's heart pounded in his chest. They reached the outskirts of the base without incident, but now came the hardest part: infiltrating the heavily guarded structure. The walls were reinforced with alien metal, impervious to most human weapons. But Kira had taught them how to bypass the security systems, using a combination of makeshift tools and alien tech that the resistance had stolen during previous skirmishes. Inside the base, the air smelled sterile and cold. The walls were lined with high-tech equipment, and in the distance, Bonner could hear the hum of alien machinery. His mission was clear: find the humans, gather intel, and escape alive. But the deeper they went into the base, the more Bonner realized just how monstrous the aliens were. There were rows upon rows of humans, shackled and enslaved, their eyes dull and lifeless as they worked under the control of the alien eye. Bonner's heart sank as he saw them, his fellow humans, reduced to nothing more than tools. He could barely stand to look at them. His blood boiled with anger as he realized that the aliens were using the same mind control devices that had taken his family. This was no longer just about fighting back. This was personal. As Bonner approached one of the control rooms, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. He froze, heart in his throat. It was the cyborg-like aliens, their glowing blue eyes scanning the darkness. They were hunting for him. Bonner and his team rushed to a nearby ventilation shaft, hoping to escape unnoticed. But they were too late. The cyborg soldiers spotted them and opened fire. The battle that followed was brutal. Bonner and his team fought back with everything they had, using whatever weapons they could find, using guerrilla tactics to take down the cyborg soldiers. It was a close call, but they managed to escape with their lives. However, the cost was high. Several members of their team didn't make it. The loss of those soldiers hit Bonner hard. He had always known the risks of war, but seeing friends fall in battle was something he'd never fully gotten used to. As Bonner and the surviving members of his team made their way back to the base, something unexpected happened. Kira had managed to hack into the aliens' cloaking technology, uncovering something far more sinister than they had anticipated. The alien forces weren't just invading Earth. They were preparing for a galaxy-wide conquest. "This isn't just about Earth," Kira said, her voice filled with shock. "The aliens have a plan, a massive operation. They've been preparing for years. Earth is just the first step. They want to enslave entire civilizations." Bonner's blood ran cold. This was worse than he could have ever imagined. The aliens weren't just here to conquer. They were planning to wipe out entire species, and humanity was at the center of their plan. With this new information, the Resistance had no choice but to prepare for the worst. The fight for Earth was just the beginning. If they were going to have any chance of survival, they had to act fast. The mission had been a success, but the true battle was only just beginning. The Resistance now knew the truth, and it was up to them to stop the aliens before it was too late. The stakes were higher than ever, and the odds were still stacked against them. But Bonner wasn't about to give up. This fight was far from over. The underground resistance base had been buzzing with activity. The plan to strike the alien supply station had been set in motion, and Bonner felt a sense of urgency in the air. The resistance was growing stronger every day. More people were joining their ranks, each one motivated by the desire to reclaim their planet, to fight back against the aliens who had ravaged their world. The stolen alien technology had given them new hope, but Bonner knew they couldn't afford to waste time. Every moment counted. But amid this growing strength, something dark was brewing within the group itself. The whispers had started slowly, at first seeming like nothing more than rumors, small doubts planted by the stress and pressure of the war. But soon, the truth began to surface, and it came at a cost that no one could have anticipated. Fisher was one of the Resistance's most trusted members. He had been with the group from the beginning, helping to organize their strategies and keeping track of important intel. He was intelligent, resourceful, and had always seemed to be fully committed to their cause. Bonner had worked alongside Fisher countless times, and they had built a solid partnership. But recently, Bonner had started noticing small inconsistencies in Fisher's actions. His behavior had become more distant, and he seemed to know a little too much about the group's plans, more than someone in his position should. It all came to a head on the day the Resistance launched its mission to take down the alien supply station. The plan was simple but dangerous. The station was heavily guarded, but it was a key target. The Resistance needed those resources to continue the fight. If they could take it down, they would have access to critical supplies, weapons, and technology. It was a perfect opportunity to deal a significant blow to the aliens. The team was ready. Bonner, along with his best friend Jack, Fisher, and a few others, prepared for the mission. The tension in the air was thick, but everyone had a sense of determination. The plan had been carefully laid out. It was time to strike. However, as the team infiltrated the alien-controlled area, everything went wrong. What had started as a carefully coordinated attack quickly spiraled into chaos. Explosions rang out as alien forces retaliated with deadly force. The Resistance had walked right into a trap. Bonner's heart raced as he scanned the area, trying to make sense of what was happening. But then, his eyes widened with realization. Fisher was nowhere to be found. His absence was strange, and Bonner's instincts screamed that something wasn't right. The battle raged on. The streets erupted in flames as the alien drones fired from all directions. Bonner and Jack fought side by side, taking down as many of the enemy as they could. But the alien forces were relentless, and their advanced weaponry outmatched anything the resistance had. Bonner's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. Something was off. This wasn't just a simple ambush. This was something worse. Then, amidst the chaos, Bonner received the message. It wasn't from the resistance. It came through a secure channel, one that he knew only Fisher had access to. The message was brief, but its implications were clear. The Resistance's plan is compromised. The supply station is a decoy. The aliens know you're coming. They're ready. Bonner's blood ran cold as the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Fisher had betrayed them. The person they had trusted, the one who had helped plan this entire operation, had been working with the aliens all along. It was a devastating blow. Fisher had led them into a trap, and now many of their team was paying the price. "Jack, we need to get out of here," Bonner shouted, his voice tinged with panic. But Jack didn't answer. Bonner turned to find his best friend, lying on the ground, a gaping wound in his side. Blood pooled around him, staining the cracked concrete. Jack's face was pale, his eyes wide with shock. "Bonner, get out of here," Jack gasped, his voice weak. "I'm not going to make it." Tears welled up in Bonner's eyes as he dropped to his knees beside Jack. His heart felt like it was being torn from his chest. Jack had been his closest friend, his brother in arms. Losing him felt like losing a part of himself. "I'm not leaving you," Bonner said, trying to stop the bleeding. But it was too late. Jack's hand fell limp in his, and his breathing slowed until it stopped entirely. Bonner stared at his friend's lifeless body, feeling the surge of anger that threatened to consume him. Fisher had not only betrayed the resistance, but he had also cost them Jack's life. And that was something Bonner would never forgive. The battle outside continued to rage. Explosions shook the ground beneath their feet, and Bonner could hear the hum of alien ships overhead, preparing to unleash orbital bombardment. The resistance was losing. The aliens were too powerful, and with Fisher's betrayal, their chance of victory had slipped away. Bonner gritted his teeth and rose to his feet. He couldn't change what had happened, but he could still fight. He would make sure Fisher paid for this. He would make sure Jack's death wasn't in vain. As Bonner led the remaining survivors of the mission back to their base, his mind was consumed by thoughts of vengeance. But there was no time to grieve. The aliens weren't just after the supply station. They were after Earth's last stronghold. Bonner had learned that Fisher's betrayal was part of a larger plan. The aliens were preparing to launch a final devastating assault on humanity's last remaining refuge. "We have to move quickly," Bonner said, his voice firm as he addressed the resistance. "The aliens are planning to launch a full-scale attack. We need to prepare for what's coming. We don't have much time." The remaining members of the resistance nodded grimly, their faces hard with determination. They had suffered a heavy blow, but they weren't done yet. The loss of Jack, the betrayal by Fisher, it all made them more determined than ever to fight. They would take down the aliens, or they would die trying. But the clock was ticking. The alien forces were gathering, and the final battle for Earth was fast approaching. The stolen alien technology, the one thing that had given the resistance hope, would be their only chance to stop the attack. Bonner knew that the coming days would be crucial. If they couldn't act fast, humanity's last stand would be over before it even began. As Bonner watched the horizon, he couldn't shake the feeling that the final confrontation was coming. The battle for Earth was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for everything humanity had ever known. The air was thick with tension as the resistance prepared for their most daring mission yet. Bonner stood at the front of the command center, the weight of what was about to unfold heavy on his shoulders. The alien forces had devastated Earth, and now humanity's last hope rested on a single audacious plan. The resistance was about to hijack an alien warship, a move so bold it could either cripple the invaders or seal humanity's fate. The plan was simple but incredibly risky. The Resistance had managed to steal a set of alien cloaking devices, which would allow them to approach the alien fleet undetected. Using the technology, they intended to infiltrate the alien command ship, the heart of the eye-controlled supremacy it had been enslaving humanity. If they could destroy it, they could potentially disable the alien network and bring down the tyrannical system controlling their war machines. But the risks were immense. This was a one-way mission. Failure would mean not just the end of the Resistance, but the end of humanity itself. Bonner's thoughts raced as he boarded the stolen alien warship with his team, his hand gripping his weapon tightly. They were ready for what was coming, but nothing could truly prepare them for the chaos and destruction they were about to face. The crew of the warship consisted of a small, elite team: soldiers, engineers, and Kira, the alien defector who had become one of their most trusted allies. She had proven her loyalty time and time again, and Bonner trusted her with his life. The thought that they might not all make it out alive loomed over him, but there was no turning back now. The journey toward the alien command ship was tense. The cloaking devices worked flawlessly, and the crew was able to approach the massive structure without detection. The alien warships drifted in space around them, seemingly unaware of the approaching Resistance forces. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest. They were so close. All it would take was one slip-up, one mistake, and everything would come crashing down. As the command ship came into view, Bonner's stomach tightened. It was an immense structure, its dark, metallic surface gleaming ominously under the distant stars. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a symbol of the alien empire's power. The Resistance team had no idea what awaited them inside. They had only one chance to strike. If they didn't succeed, humanity's last stand would be over. The ship's airlock opened with a low hum, and Bonner led the team inside. Immediately, they were met with resistance. The alien forces had been expecting them, and they weren't alone. Eye-controlled robots patrolled the corridors, their metallic limbs moving with terrifying precision. The Resistance fought back fiercely, engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat with the alien soldiers. Bonner's heart raced as he and his team pushed forward, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the command ship. Explosive firefights erupted in the narrow hallways, the sound of blaster fire and the clash of weapons filling the air. Bonner ducked behind cover as an alien soldier lunged toward him, swinging a plasma sword. With a swift motion, he ducked and countered, driving his blade into the alien's chest. The soldier crumpled to the ground, but there was no time to savor the victory. More enemies were coming. Kira fought alongside him, her alien strength and agility giving her an edge in close-quarters combat. She moved like a shadow, dispatching enemies with brutal efficiency. Bonner couldn't help but admire her skill. She was everything humanity needed in this fight, and more. But even with their combined strength, the odds were against them. The aliens had the advantage in numbers, and the Resistance had only a fraction of the resources they needed. As the battle raged on, Bonner found himself forced to make difficult decisions. There was no time for hesitation. His crew was outnumbered, and the alien soldiers were relentless. He had to think fast and act faster. In one instance, he ordered an explosive charge placed on a wall to create a diversion, sacrificing a small portion of the ship in the process. It cost them valuable time, but it allowed the team to push deeper into the heart of the ship. "Keep moving," Bonner shouted, adrenaline coursing through his veins. They couldn't afford to stop. Not now. Not when humanity's future was on the line. But as they reached the central control room, the unthinkable happened. Kira, who had been fighting by his side for so long, was gravely injured during the firefight. A stray blast from an alien weapon struck her in the chest, sending her crashing to the ground. Bonner rushed to her side, his heart sinking as he saw the blood pooling around her. Her breathing was shallow, her strength fading fast. "No, Kira, stay with me," Bonner urged, his voice thick with emotion. He had never imagined that this would happen, that he would lose her on this mission. She had become more than just an ally. She had become his closest friend, someone he cared about deeply. Kira weakly reached up, placing a hand on his cheek. "Bonner," she whispered, her voice strained. "You have to finish this. The mission. It's everything. Don't let them win." Tears welled up in Bonner's eyes, but he knew what he had to do. He kissed her forehead gently, then turned to face the command center ahead. He wouldn't let her sacrifice be in vain. They had come too far, and humanity was depending on them. With Kira's sacrifice weighing heavily on his heart, Bonner led the charge into the control room. The last leg of their mission was at hand. But as they entered, they faced their biggest challenge yet. The AI that controlled the command ship awoke, its cold mechanical voice filling the room. "Intruders detected. System breach in progress," the AI intoned, its voice devoid of emotion. "Self-destruct sequence initiated. All resistance is futile." The room seemed to freeze as the words hit them. The AI had activated the self-destruct protocol, and the entire ship was now a ticking time bomb. Bonner's pulse quickened. They had to act fast, or they would all be dead within minutes. "Disable the self-destruct sequence," Bonner shouted, but it was easier said than done. The AI had anticipated this move and had locked down the control systems. The team raced to override the system, but the alien technology was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The pressure was mounting. They were running out of time. The ship began to shake violently, alarms blaring as the countdown continued. Bonner felt the weight of his decision. He had to finish this. There was no turning back now. The fate of humanity, the memory of Kira, and the sacrifices of so many others depended on what happened in the next few minutes. With a final, desperate effort, Bonner and the team managed to hack into the system. They initiated the sequence to disable the self-destruct, but it wasn't enough. The AI had one last trick up its sleeve. As the ship lurched under the strain of the self-destruct countdown, Bonner knew they had only seconds to escape. "Get to the escape pods," Bonner ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. The team rushed to comply, but not everyone would make it. The ship was already beginning to tear apart, and Bonner barely made it to an escape pod in time. As the pod ejected from the command ship, Bonner watched as the colossal structure erupted in a massive explosion behind them. The shockwave rippled through space, and Bonner knew that they had just dealt a crippling blow to the alien forces. But as the dust settled, and he gazed out at the stars, one thought burned in his mind. This was only the beginning. The battle for humanity was far from over. The final assault had begun. The resistance had come so far, endured so much, and now they were standing on the precipice of their greatest challenge yet. Bonner could feel the weight of what they were about to face, but he pushed those thoughts aside. They had no choice. It was now or never. The alien fortress loomed ahead, its towering spires casting long shadows over the desolate landscape. The planet's surface was scarred by years of conflict, its once vibrant cities reduced to rubble by the relentless alien invasion. But humanity had endured, they had fought back, and now they were ready to finish what had been started. The AI systems that controlled the alien war machines had been disabled, but the true enemy, the alien commander himself, remained. He was the one who had orchestrated the invasion, the one who had shown no mercy. He was the one who needed to be stopped. Bonner stood at the front of the resistance forces, his mind focused and calm despite the chaos that surrounded him. He had been through so much, fought alongside friends, lost allies, and watched as everything they had worked for hung in the balance. But now, as he looked around at the faces of the men and women who stood with him, he knew one thing: humanity would not be defeated. They had already proven that. The resistance had gathered all of their strength for this final battle. They had hijacked alien warships, infiltrated enemy lines, and fought tooth and nail to make it this far. Now, it all came down to this one moment. The alien commander, a terrifying figure clad in advanced cybernetic enhancements, awaited them in the heart of his fortress. Bonner's mission was clear. He had to end the alien reign once and for all. The assault on the fortress was swift and brutal. The resistance fought with everything they had, using every weapon at their disposal. Blaster fire lit up the darkened corridors, and the sounds of explosions echoed through the air. The alien forces put up a fierce fight, but the humans were relentless. Bonner's team moved forward, pushing back the aliens, clearing each level of the fortress, and getting closer to their goal. The resistance had only a small advantage: their sheer determination. The aliens, with all their advanced technology and cybernetic enhancements, underestimated the human spirit. They believed that their power would be enough to crush the humans, but they didn't understand. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons or technology, but in their resolve to fight for what was right. The final battle took place in the heart of the fortress. The alien commander stood at the top of a massive staircase, his body augmented with dark metallic limbs and glowing red eyes. He was a terrifying sight, a symbol of the alien empire's relentless desire to conquer and control. He raised his weapon, a sleek, energy-infused blade, and waited for the humans to come to him. Bonner was the first to step forward, his weapon drawn and his eyes fixed on the commander. The air was thick with tension as the two enemies faced off. The fate of humanity rested on this moment. Bonner had fought for so long, had lost so much, and now he was standing in front of the being that had caused all the suffering. The alien commander spoke first, his voice cold and mechanical. "You think you can stop me? You think you can defeat the might of the greater hive? You are nothing but insects." Bonner's eyes narrowed. He knew what the commander wanted. He wanted to break them, to make them doubt their ability to win. But Bonner wouldn't allow that. He wouldn't allow this creature to control him, to manipulate him. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to stop now. "We are not insects," Bonner said, his voice steady. "We are human beings, and we will fight for our survival." The battle that followed was fierce. The alien commander was a formidable opponent, his cybernetic enhancements making him faster, stronger, and more resilient than any human. He moved with precision, his energy blade cutting through the air, each swing a deadly strike. But Bonner was no ordinary soldier. He had been through hell and back. He had lost everything, but he had never given up. And now he was facing the culmination of everything he had fought for. Bonner fought with everything he had, his body moving instinctively as he parried the commander's strikes and countered with his own. The clash of weapons echoed through the room as the two combatants exchanged blows, each one more intense than the last. The resistance fought hard, but they knew the outcome of the battle would come down to this confrontation. Bonner had to win. As the battle raged on, Bonner could feel his strength waning. He had fought for so long, and the toll was starting to show. His body ached, his breath came in ragged gasps, but he refused to give up. He refused to let the commander win. And then, in a moment of sheer desperation, Bonner saw an opening. The commander's cybernetic arm, heavily augmented for combat, was slightly damaged from a previous strike. It was enough. With one final surge of energy, Bonner lunged forward, his weapon aimed at the commander's exposed weakness. The strike was precise. The commander let out a mechanical scream as Bonner's blade pierced through his armor, severing the cybernetic limb and causing the alien to stagger backward. For a moment, the commander faltered, his once imposing form weakened by the blow. Bonner didn't hesitate. He moved in, striking again and again, each blow taking the alien closer to defeat. The commander's eyes glowed brighter, his voice becoming more frantic. "You cannot defeat me. I am the future. I will conquer everything." But Bonner's resolve was unshakable. He had seen the destruction the aliens had caused. He had watched his friends die. He had fought too long and sacrificed too much to let this monster live. With one final powerful strike, Bonner drove his blade deep into the commander's chest, ending the battle. The fortress trembled as the alien commander fell to the ground, his body disintegrating into a pile of twisted metal and sparks. The fight was over. The aliens had been defeated. Humanity had struck back. But the victory came at a cost. Bonner looked around at the destruction, the ruins of the fortress, and the fallen soldiers who had given their lives for this moment. He had won, but he had lost so much along the way. He had lost Kira. He had lost friends. And now he was left to carry the weight of their sacrifices. As the dust settled, the surviving resistance members gathered around Bonner, their faces a mix of exhaustion and triumph. They had done it. They had won. The alien empire was no more, and humanity had emerged victorious. But as Bonner stood there, looking out over the battlefield, he knew that the war was far from over. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of hope. Humanity had proven that they could fight, that they could survive. And as long as they had that will, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. The battle for humanity had been won, but the future was still uncertain. Bonner and his team had done the impossible, and now it was up to the survivors to rebuild. The road ahead would be long, but they had proven that they were capable of facing anything. Humanity had struck back, and they would never be the same again. The silence that hung in the air was deafening. The war was over. The battlefield, once teeming with chaos and destruction, now lay still. Bonner stood at the edge of the ruined alien stronghold, looking out at the wreckage. Smoke rose from the remains of the fortress, the very walls that had once housed the alien commander now crumbling into dust. The city surrounding him, once a symbol of alien dominance, was now nothing more than a shattered landscape. The sound of distant sirens echoed through the air, a reminder of the price they had paid for victory. The war had been long. It had taken everything from them. The resistance had fought with everything they had, and now, as Bonner surveyed the wreckage, he couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. The cost of this victory was not just in lives lost, but in the emotional scars that would remain with him forever. His friends, his comrades, many of them had fallen. Kira, his ally, his friend, the alien who had chosen to fight for humanity, was gone. Jack, his best friend, was gone. The faces of the fallen haunted him, each one a reminder of the sacrifice they had made. Humanity had won, but the price of that victory was high. The alien invaders had been defeated, their forces scattered, their command structure destroyed. The remnants of the alien race were now being sent into exile, having been overthrown by the very species they had once sought to enslave. The tables had turned, and the alien empire was no more. The survivors of the resistance had ensured that humanity would live on, but the question that lingered in Bonner's mind was whether it had been worth it. In the wake of the battle, Earth began the long process of rebuilding. The human race, scared by the invasion but stronger for it, began to reclaim their planet. Cities that had once been ravaged by the alien assault were being rebuilt from the ground up. People worked together, side by side, to restore their homes, their communities, their lives. The Earth was healing, but it would never be the same. The scars of war would remain, not just in the landscape but in the hearts of those who had survived. Bonner was hailed as a hero. The resistance had succeeded, and the alien threat had been eradicated. He was celebrated by the people, his name forever etched in history as the one who had led them to victory. But in the quiet moments, when the celebrations faded and the world moved on, Bonner couldn't escape the feeling of emptiness that lingered inside him. Yes, they had won. Yes, they had defeated the invaders. But at what cost? He thought of Kira, of Jack, and the countless others who had given their lives in the fight. The victory was sweet, but it was also bitter. The faces of the fallen, the sounds of their final cries, and the weight of their sacrifice haunted him. He had led them to victory, but he had also led them into battle. He had made the tough decisions, the ones that had cost lives, and now he was left to carry that burden. The war was over, but the scars would remain. Humanity had proven its strength, its resilience. They had shown the galaxy that they would not be crushed, that they would not be ruled. They had fought for their freedom and had won. But as Bonner looked out over the ruins of the alien stronghold, he couldn't shake the feeling that the cost had been too high. The alien commander, the one who had orchestrated it all, was gone. But the destruction, the pain, the loss, it would never truly be gone. The survivors of the resistance, the few who remained, gathered around Bonner. They, too, were heroes. They had fought alongside him, had sacrificed just as much, and now they stood together, united in their victory. But even in their victory, there was a sense of mourning. The joy of their success was tempered by the sadness of the lives they had lost. Bonner turned to his comrades, his eyes heavy with the weight of what they had endured. "We did it," he said, his voice steady, but the emotion behind his words was undeniable. "But we can never forget what it cost us. We can never forget those who gave everything for this victory." His words were met with nods of agreement. They knew. They had all felt it. The loss, the grief, the sacrifice. It was a part of them now, a part of the victory they had won. As Earth began to rebuild, the resistance members went their separate ways. Some chose to stay and help rebuild their homes, while others left, seeking a new purpose in the world they had saved. Bonner, however, could not shake the feeling that his journey was not yet over. He had led the charge against the aliens, but there was still so much more to be done. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, but there were still many threats out there, lurking in the shadows. Humanity had struck back, and they would never be the same again. The silence that hung in the air was deafening. The war was over. The battlefield, once teeming with chaos and destruction, now lay still. Bonner stood at the edge of the ruined alien stronghold, looking out at the wreckage. Smoke rose from the remains of the fortress, the very walls that had once housed the alien commander now crumbling into dust. The city surrounding him, once a symbol of alien dominance, was now nothing more than a shattered landscape. The sound of distant sirens echoed through the air, a reminder of the price they had paid for victory. The war had been long. It had taken everything from them. The resistance had fought with everything they had, and now, as Bonner surveyed the wreckage, he couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. The cost of this victory was not just in lives lost, but in the emotional scars that would remain with him forever. His friends, his comrades, many of them had fallen. Kira, his ally, his friend, the alien who had chosen to fight for humanity, was gone. Jack, his best friend, was gone. The faces of the fallen haunted him, each one a reminder of the sacrifice they had made. Humanity had won, but the price of that victory was high. The alien invaders had been defeated, their forces scattered, their command structure destroyed. The remnants of the alien race were now being sent into exile, having been overthrown by the very species they had once sought to enslave. The tables had turned, and the alien empire was no more. The survivors of the resistance had ensured that humanity would live on, but the question that lingered in Bonner's mind was whether it had been worth it. In the wake of the battle, Earth began the long process of rebuilding. The human race, scared by the invasion but stronger for it, began to reclaim their planet. Cities that had once been ravaged by the alien assault were being rebuilt from the ground up. People worked together, side by side, to restore their homes, their communities, their lives. The Earth was healing, but it would never be the same. The scars of war would remain, not just in the landscape but in the hearts of those who had survived. Bonner was hailed as a hero. The resistance had succeeded, and the alien threat had been eradicated. He was celebrated by the people, his name forever etched in history as the one who had led them to victory. But in the quiet moments, when the celebrations faded and the world moved on, Bonner couldn't escape the feeling of emptiness that lingered inside him. Yes, they had won. Yes, they had defeated the invaders. But at what cost? He thought of Kira, of Jack, and the countless others who had given their lives in the fight. The victory was sweet, but it was also bitter. The faces of the fallen, the sounds of their final cries, and the weight of their sacrifice haunted him. He had led them to victory, but he had also led them into battle. He had made the tough decisions, the ones that had cost lives, and now he was left to carry that burden. The war was over, but the scars would remain. Humanity had proven its strength, its resilience. They had shown the galaxy that they would not be crushed, that they would not be ruled. They had fought for their freedom and had won. But as Bonner looked out over the ruins of the alien stronghold, he couldn't shake the feeling that the cost had been too high. The alien commander, the one who had orchestrated it all, was gone. But the destruction, the pain, the loss, it would never truly be gone. The survivors of the resistance, the few who remained, gathered around Bonner. They too were heroes. They had fought alongside him, had sacrificed just as much, and now they stood together, united in their victory. But even in their victory, there was a sense of mourning. The joy of their success was tempered by the sadness of the lives they had lost. Bonner turned to his comrades, his eyes heavy with the weight of what they had endured. "We did it," he said, his voice steady, but the emotion behind his words was undeniable. "But we can never forget what it cost us. We can never forget those who gave everything for this victory." His words were met with nods of agreement. They knew. They had all felt it. The loss, the grief, the sacrifice. It was a part of them now, a part of the victory they had won. As Earth began to rebuild, the resistance members went their separate ways. Some chose to stay and help rebuild their homes, while others left, seeking a new purpose in the world they had saved. Bonner, however, could not shake the feeling that his journey was not yet over. He had led the charge against the aliens, but there was still so much more to be done. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, but there were still many threats out there, lurking in the shadows. He stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching as the survivors of the resistance made their way across the ruins. He could hear the distant hum of construction machines, the sounds of life slowly returning to the planet. The Earth was healing, but Bonner knew it would never truly be the same. The scars would remain. The victory, while hard-earned and well-deserved, had come at a cost. But it had also brought humanity together. It had united them in a way that nothing else could. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. Bonner's gaze shifted to the horizon, where the last remnants of the battle still burned. The sky was clear, but the memory of the destruction would linger. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy would never forget the cost of underestimating them. The war had ended, but the legacy of their struggle would live on, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the ruins, Bonner stood tall. The battle had been won. The alien invaders were gone. But the future was uncertain. The Earth would rebuild, but the scars of war would never fade. Bonner, and all who had fought alongside him, had proven that humanity could face any challenge, no matter how great. They had fought for their freedom, and they had won. But as they looked to the future, they knew the cost of that victory, and they would never forget those who had given everything for the survival of humanity. The final shot of Earth rebuilding in peace was a bittersweet one. The horizon, once scared by battle, now held the promise of a new beginning. Humanity had fought for its survival, and now they could look to the future. But the galaxy would forever remember the price of underestimating humanity.